Hi Internet. Today in the dungeon I'll show you guys how to make the whitewash facing for a medieval building. Whitewash facing was very popular in medieval Europe, and I found this way to do it to be very easy and to give a very authentic look. There are of course other ways you could do this, but I find that I really like it and it's easier and gives a better finish than other ways. Okay, so to get started, we need to first create our deep frame. We're going to create the white plaster effect with actual plaster, so we're going to need a deep frame to cast the plaster into. Now, to create the deep frames, we're going to need some planks and some posts. In order to make the planks and posts, I use XPF. I cut the material for the planks out of 2 by 20 millimeter pieces of XPF, which I cut on my foam cutter, and pieces of 5 by 5 millimeter XPF, which I also cut on the foam cutter to create my posts. I use an X-Acto knife to scratch long but uneven scratches along the posts and planks to create wood texture, and then I emphasize that texture with a steel brush, as you can see in the video. Once I have enough of these ready, and I don't cut them to size yet, I take my ruler and a pencil and draw out the frame plan on a piece of cardboard that I'm going to use later to create the building out of. Once the plan is ready, I simply take the uncut pieces of XPF, put them on the plan itself, and cut them exactly and directly onto the plan and glue them onto the plan. When this is done, I take these building fronts and I glue them together to create an entire building. This I find is the easiest and quickest way to make a building, either with a deep frame or a shallow frame. Or you can always just build the building directly onto an uncut cereal box if you need a building of that size. If not, just take a smaller box. Once you've finished creating all of the timber frame itself, including the door, take some small pieces of XPF left over, cut them to create the hinges. What I did here is that I wore the hinges out a bit using a small stone, which I simply tapped onto the XPF to give it wrought iron look. And then I used one of my sculpting tools to create indentations in the hinges to look like screws that hold them to the door. It's always a nice touch to wear the planks a bit for the door before you glue them in. This way the door seems older and more used, which just gives it a bit more character. Once you've finished building the frame, as I said, just glue all the frames you made together to create the building fronts and sides. When this is done, give everything a base coat in a dark color. It's important to give it a base coat in a dark color. This way, even if you've covered a bit with the plaster, you can still see it mostly underneath the plaster because it's white. And it'll make it work easier in the later bits of this project. When your base coat is ready and dried, just take some plaster of Paris and water, mix them in a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 parts plaster, 1 part water. Mix the plaster and just pour it into the frame. Do this to all of the mini frames that you've created. By mini frame, I mean the bits between the posts and planks. When you've filled in all of the frames, and you're going to have to work quickly so the plaster doesn't start setting, just tap the building lightly to make the plaster move into all of the nooks and crannies. Using your fingers, wipe off any excess plaster you might have poured. If there are any major spillovers, take the paint knife and scrape the leftover plaster. Another thing you can do, and I did here, is taking the paint knife and using it to texture the plaster as it dries, creating wiping marks or spreading marks, just as if somebody used a large mastering to scrape the plaster into the frames. This gives it a more realistic and authentic look, and I think it came out pretty nicely in this project. Once your plaster has been sitting in the frames for a few hours, just so that it fully cures, and just take a dry brush and use it to clean off the posts from any spillover plaster that might have gone into the wood texture and obscured it. If you have any serious spillovers, you can also use the steel brush to do this. Once you're done with the cleanup, take a paintbrush and some dark burnt umber and just go over the entire frame, repainting it so that it really shows and pops. When your posts are all dry, take a light shade of brown and dry brush the frames. As you can see, it looks really awesome, and you can see how easy it was. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you here on the next video. Till then, goodbye.